Let's take a look at how to create a CloudStack zone that only makes use of SolidFire storage. I'm in the Add Zone wizard. I've provided a lot of information already. At this point, I'm at the point where I'm going to be adding primary storage. I've provided a name, PS1, cluster scope. I've selected pre-setup, provided a name for the SR, and a storage tag. Now let's go ahead and create a SolidFire volume that we can consume in Zen server, and we'll name the storage repository that we put on that SolidFire volume, we'll name that SR1. So I'm going to switch over to the SolidFire GUI. This is a brand new installation for the most part. There isn't any real data on it. I don't have any volumes or accounts. I'm going to go ahead and create an account. I'll just call it ACCT1. And if I go over to the Volumes tab, I'm going to create a volume, which I'll just call vol-1. It will be placed in our account, and I'll give it, say, 100 gigabytes. And for the time being, at least, I'll just leave the IOPS as they are. Create the volume. So now we have a single account and a single volume in that account. Let's go and make sure that the volume here can be seen by our Zen server hosts. I have two Zen server hosts. So I'm going to switch over to the Volume Access Groups tab and create a volume access group. Let's make this VAG-1. We can put in the IQNs in this text area here. Let me switch over to Zen Center, and these are my two Zen server hosts. If I go over to the General tab, I can see the iSCSI IQN. I'm going to select that row and copy it, then switch back over to my SolidFire GUI and paste in that text, hitting the Enter button. I'm going to go and repeat the process with the other Zen server host. Here we are, copy, and back here we can see at the bottom the SolidFire GUI has automatically added the IQN that we just provided before. Let's go ahead and paste this one in. And here I'll just explicitly hit the Create Volume Access Group button. This will add this IQN to the list below, so there'll be two items in the list. And then I'll hit the button one more time to actually create the Volume Access Group. Now if I select Volume Access Groups, we can see we do have a Volume Access Group, VAG-1, with two initiators. So let's go ahead and switch back to active volumes. I'm going to click on the checkbox for our one and only volume. There's an Add to Volume Access Group button, which I'm selecting. From the drop down, I'll pick our one and only volume access group and hit the Add button. Now we have our volume, which is associated with ACCT1, and it's in VAG1, which means both of our Zen server hosts have access to this particular volume. Now let's go over to Zen Center again, and I'll click on New Storage. This is going to be Software iSCSI. I'll click the Next button. I can give this whatever name I want. Let's just go with Storage Repository -1, which I believe is what I used in the CloudStack wizard. Let's go back and confirm that though. Back in CloudStack, it was actually SR_1. So let's go ahead and make sure those are the same. SR_1. Then I'll click on the Next button. The host target is the storage virtual IP address. We can get that from the SolidFire GUI by clicking on the Cluster Settings tab, and it's this IP address right here. I'll go ahead and copy that, and switch back to Zen Center and paste it in. Now we're not using chap since we're using a volume access group, so we can leave that unchecked and blank. I'll click on Discover IQNs. There really should just be the one, vol-1, and then I'll click on Discover LUNs, and there should only be one LUN per iSCSI target for SolidFire. In a moment, it'll select LUN 0. There we are. I'll click on the Finish button. Right now it's going to scan the logical unit and realize that there is no storage repository on it. It will then ask me here if I wish to format it as a storage repository. Let's go ahead and click the Yes button. Well, this process just takes a moment. We're putting our clustered file system on our SolidFire logical unit. Once this is done, we can switch back to CloudStack and complete the zone creation wizard. And actually, while this is doing its thing, let's switch back here anyways and go back to CloudStack. So we have all of our information here. I'm going to hit the Next button. As a provider for secondary storage, I'm going to pick NFS. And my NFS server happens to be at 192.168.129.88. Just happens to be the same machine that's running the CloudStack management server. For my path, it's Export Secondary. Then I'm going to click on Next. So the zone is ready to be created. Let's first make sure that the process of creating the storage repository has completed. It has, so this is great. So we're okay now if we hit the Launch Zone button. CloudStack will begin the process of creating this zone, and we will check back in on this in just a moment. Okay, now that our zone has been successfully created, we're asked if we'd like to enable it. Let's say no. We'll switch over to Infrastructure. Under Primary Storage, we'll add primary storage. Cluster Scope, Zone 1, Pod 1, Cluster 1. Let's give it a name, maybe SolidFire 1, SolidFire-1. Protocol is Custom. Provider is SolidFireShared. Capacity bytes. Let's put in, I'll go over to my document here. Let's put in a terabyte. Capacity IOPS, I'm going to put in 5,000, which we'll see why in a second. If I switch back to my document, I want to take this collection of text, which is a bunch of key value pairs separated by a semicolon, and I want to copy and paste that into the URL field. This contains information like the MVIP, just the MVIP and SVIP, cluster admin, password, min, max, and burst IOPS. The min IOPS that I specified were 5,000, so we need to make sure that the 5,000 is not only in this particular URL text field, but also in this capacity IOPS. And then we'll put in some kind of a storage tag, maybe SolidFire-1, and then I'll hit the OK button. What's going on now is the SolidFireShared plugin is creating a new volume on the SolidFire SAN, which has the appropriate size and performance characteristics. Once that is completed, a Zen server storage repository will be created to consume that newly created SolidFire volume. And once that is done, it will be brought into CloudStack as primary storage. Let's go to the SolidFire SAN Volumes tab, and we can see here we do in fact have a new SolidFire volume with a terabyte of space and the quality of service settings are as we expect. Specifically, the min IOPS is set at 5,000. Now let's go over to Zen Center, and we can see here, I'll expand this, we can see that there is a storage repository that's being created right now to consume this new logical unit. And it has completed successfully. Let's go back to CloudStack. And we can see that our primary storage was created as we would expect. At this point, we no longer have a need for the original primary storage that we made use of when we were creating the zone in the wizard. Let's go ahead, and that primary storage was PS_1. Under the quick view, let's enable maintenance mode and select yes. And this will just take a moment. We're now in maintenance mode, and we can go ahead and delete this particular primary storage. Okay, so that primary storage has been deleted. Now that that original primary storage has been deleted, let's go ahead and switch back to Zen Center and see that CloudStack has automatically deleted the storage repository that was associated with that particular primary storage. And if we go over to the SolidFire GUI, we'll see, after I refresh, I'll switch over to volume overview and refresh, we'll see that the underlying volume is still on the SAN. This particular volume needs to be deleted manually. Let's delete this one. We'll refresh again. Okay, great. So now we only have our one SolidFire volume, which is servicing this particular storage repository, which, if we switch over to CloudStack, is this particular primary storage. Now let's go back to infrastructure, back to our zone. I'm going to click on zone 1, and we can see here we have several options, including enabling the zone. I'm going to click on that button and say yes. Okay, the zone has been enabled. Okay, now that our zone has been enabled, and in this case we only have the one primary storage, which is based on the SolidFireShared plugin, we'll see that CloudStack has begun deploying system virtual machines to that one and only primary storage. Let's switch over to infrastructure, and we can see that there are two system VMs, the console proxy and the secondary storage virtual machine. If we go over to Zen Center and we select, which it's already been selected, this particular storage repository, which is backed by a SolidFire logical unit, we can see that the system VM template, which I've selected, has been downloaded to this storage repository. And there are two root disks, one for each of the system VMs. And the system VMs, I'll click on the secondary storage VM and now the console proxy VM. So these are up and running, and we now have a zone that is just making use of the SolidFire shared plugin. If we want, we can deploy additional virtual machines to this particular primary storage. We can also add in the SolidFire plugin, so the SolidFire plugin in addition to the SolidFire shared plugin, so we can mix and match them and decide where to put our root and data disks for our virtual machines. And the alternative approach here, if we didn't want to use the pre-setup option and manually create a SolidFire volume, then manually create a storage repository and get through the wizard that way. Alternatively, we could have used an NFS share for primary storage and created our zone that way. we would still have said not to enable the zone at the end of the wizard. Then we would have gone into the infrastructure area and added primary storage that's based on the SolidFireShared plugin. Once that was done successfully, we'd have gone ahead and deleted the original primary storage, which was based in this other scenario on NFS storage, so that either way we end up with a single primary storage that's making use of the SolidFireShared plugin. And then once we're in that situation, we can go and enable our zone and have our system VMs deployed to that SolidFire backed primary storage.